All right. Whoa, shoot. Sorry. Sorry, guys. My apologies. I don't know why that happened. That was a freak out. Freak out to start the show. My bad. Hope you all well. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining in on the fun. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin, and Colin. What are we doing today? We're talking about this and that. Talking about some climate things. We're talking about the climate, political climate. Rockfinners, hello. How you doing? I see you. Don't be shy. All right. Got a few things to check out today. It's a Saturday. I do this 7 days a week when a lot of people don't. A lot of people do 4 days or 5 days or 3 days or 2 nights, 2 afternoons. There was an earthquake in Morocco. Some footage of people running from this earthquake. I mean, there's a lot of footage of damage, of course. This is the moment everybody started feeling the quake. Holy shnikes, that looks frightening. I know, and immediately when things like this happen, people are like, oh, love those HARP generated earthquakes, right? You can't attribute everything to a conspiracy, can you? I mean, you can contribute some things to a conspiracy, for sure. It's slightly tiring, when every single thing is like, some things are more obviously contrived than others, but what also happens when the Earth gets warmer? The planet gets destabilized, right? The plates, the tectonic plates, and the fault lines and whatnot. Not the Earth expands just as the water expands. This is called science. So when the Earth gets warmer, the planet gets warmer. Even just by a little bit, right? That minor, tiny expansion can cause things to not operate the way they used to, or can cause things to slip, faults to slip. So there's also that. So consider science, that level of science, as well as the all the well, I hear there was a boat parked off the shore in the Mediterranean. Or is it just so dang hot on the planet that there's currently a hurricane in the Mediterranean still? Right? The waters are warmer, the earth is warmer, everything's warmer, the air is warmer. And that could possibly destabilize the planet a little bit, right? At least 1,037 dead in a rare, powerful earthquake. 6.8 magnitude, pretty strong. Struck Morocco late Friday night and killed at least 1,000 people. That's a lot of people. Marrakesh has a population of almost 1 million people. Anyways, it hit at 11:11 p.m. locally. there's, I mean, just, you know, picture after picture, video after video of damage. Hasn't there been major earthquakes in Turkey, Syria, elsewhere? Is it because somebody's sending out the secret earthquake rays, or is it because the Earth is warmer? Scientifically, that would preclude, you know, everything expanding, the Earth too, the Earth's crust expanding, and probably would cause some earthquakes. I would think. But pretty major disaster there. For the people of Morocco. I ran across this video. This is very interesting. And this reminds me of, you know, once in a while I've rambled on about Cliff High, if anybody knows who Cliff High is. And there, back in the day, I used to listen to a guy who would recite Cliff High's WebBot reports, which basically kind of foretold the future. And back in the day, some of his reports about the future said that people from the U.S. would start to go towards Mexico, the opposite way of, you know, we're so worried about building the wall and keeping all the people from coming over the, you know, over the border. It's a big thing. We talked about it the other day. But his reports, and other people have suggested this too, he's not the only one, is that some calamity, you know, and who knows what it is. Some calamity would force people to start immigrating in the opposite direction, start going towards Mexico and away from the U.S. But this is a really interesting video, and maybe this guy is messing around. It looks like he might be joking, but I don't know. This man claims that Mexico is now paying for the border wall because they know the USA is finished. Mexico knows that the dollar is going to collapse soon, so they don't want anyone running back across the border when the USA collapses. What? Who knows? This is just some dude working on the wall. The guy says, you know, Trump's not president anymore. You can stop building the wall.
Trump's in jail. You can quit building the wall. Mexico is paid to build the wall. Did you hear about that? You know why? Why is that? Okay, so we're from here. They're going to try to go back. They're going to try to go back to Mexico. Getting ready for a collapse. You know, on the dollar. So they thinking that a lot of people's going to start trying to go back. Yeah. So now Mexico wants to hold everybody back.
Did y'all get that? He said Mexico is paying for the wall because they think the dollar is going to collapse and that people are going to start coming the other way. So the walls to keep them out might be the walls to keep you in. All you wall supporters, all the people that are like, yeah, build that wall, we need it. All you wall supporters might be trapped by your own designs. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of there've been all kinds of predictions, and they've been flying fast and furious this year. Predictions of economic collapse, predictions of the dollar collapse, and but you should probably take those predictions seriously. Like, you probably shouldn't just go, right? You should probably, give a healthy ear to those predictions. That doesn't mean live in fear. That doesn't mean like upend your life. That doesn't mean, any of that. But it's a possibility. And there are a lot of people that are predicting kind of a, as Whitney Webb predicted, a growing tyranny in the US. Due to what? Is the tyranny itself the cause of the problem, or something else happens and then they go, well, we're gonna have to ramp up the tyranny because we want to keep everybody safe. Oh, there was a video that got a lot of traction on the Twitter. I mean, a lot of people are predicting a new pandemic. Hold on. I know I can find this video because so many people have posted it. Here it is. Like every other post is this. But it's an interesting video to take stock of, right? Because Whitney Webb and others have been saying like the tyranny is growing. The whole point of labeling anybody who questions the government a domestic terrorist is, again, the point is to demonize people, regular people, and their exerting of their constitutional rights as problematic to the extreme. That serves a purpose, right? That's just manufactured consent for, oh my God, these people are so dangerous and we can't have this, and we gotta smash them with the boot. The boot of what? The boot of fascism. But this is the New Mexico governor, Grisham. I don't know her first name. Kind of, her name is Michelle Grisham. But what happened, actually, and you can blame Trump for this. What happened during COVID was that there was an emergency declaration of emergency. Before a lot of the COVID policies were rolled out, Trump authorized a bill that stated that the U.S. was in a wartime footing because of the pandemic. So that wartime footing enabled, like a martial law type stance to be taken by the U.S. if they deemed it necessary, right? We're at war. Anything goes. All the constitutional rights are out the window. And that is that has been used over and over again during the, from 9/11 on, right? The chipping away at the constitutional rights, the chipping away at the protections that people have, the civil rights that people have, has been going on for decades. But it ramped up, it took another step forward during COVID. So she says that they can suspend any part of the Constitution in the name of a health emergency. Well, this is during COVID. Now she's invoking that power to eliminate Second Amendment rights. This is a test run. Well, let's listen to this a little bit.
All the examples you cited are crimes. It says it's a statewide issue and it's a message to everyone to start leveraging your resources and arresting people. 2, the jurisdictions come at this, including with the DOJ restrictions, differently, without the leveraging and the additional resources, arresting, and where do they go? We got to make sure that everyone is bumping up their services. It's a message to the Metropolitan Detention Center. It's a message to the HMOs. You better figure out treatment. We have been sort of stalled out, to your point. This order basically says, stop stalling out, and to your point, just arrest everyone. Well, I also have to have the ability, I can't arrest everyone. There are literally too many people to arrest. This would allow us,
If someone's got a concealed carry permit in Albuquerque walking down a public street, they're not going to get arrested.
I can make the point that maybe they should be. And this is the point. I'm willing to do anything and everything within a shred of evidence-based effort. Because if you're not horrified that on any street corner in too many cities in New Mexico, there is someone with a gun sticking out of their waist or their belt. And I'll tell you, if you're a young person, you're not allowed to have a handgun.
Well, it's a crime already.
I got it, but we won't be able to arrest all of them. So imagine, just in a perfect world, if this was upheld, it gives all of these police officers the ability to focus on the real criminals.
Last follow-up.
Yeah. But your point is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitution.
Okay, so that was the point I was trying to get to. If there's an emergency, constitutional rights, civil rights go to the wayside. And so, yeah, what she was saying was, well, people with open carry licenses should, maybe they should be taken off the streets too. I don't know. It seems to be an issue that is obviously high in the right-wing libertarian circle. They feel like this is important, but it is important because what have we seen from the Cop City protesters, which are clearly lefties, being charged under RICO statutes in Georgia, basically labeling them domestic terrorists, right, for opposing the Cop City compound that's being built there, right? So these have implications. The shredding or the eroding of civil rights or constitutional rights has implications, across a broad spectrum of beliefs, stances, political views, whatever. And again, if you say, well, they should have the ability to suspend constitutional law in this case, well, then they will have the ability to suspend the constitutional law in cases where you might feel more of as a target, right? This is a great video. This is a great little song. I don't know who this is. Carsey Blanton, I think, is her name. But she's doing a song. Listen to the lyrics are great. It's very political. It's called Rich People, I think this is the name of the song. Here, let's listen to this for a moment.
Back in 1979, the West
vote. It ain't rednecks. Rich people with big fat checks.
Just a little clip from that song. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was pretty great. Good lyrics. Rich people. The corporations. We have to have a merging of the corporate states and the individual countries. And you know the rest. I like to take little comedy or music breaks if they are pertinent to the subject material. This is pretty crazy. It's well, going back to the idea of economic collapse, I guess here's some evidence that something is amiss. Mortgage applications to buy a house are now lower than back during the post-real estate recession time period of 2009 to 2015. That impacts many different job categories: real estate agents, home inspectors, mortgage brokers, all the loan processing employees, et cetera, et cetera. Many other jobs that are now in deep recession. I mean, okay. I saw one stat that there are more real estate agents with active licenses than there are listed properties on the market. I'm not sure if that one is true, but it wouldn't surprise me. So this is, it's lower mortgage applications to buy homes. Lower than it was after the crisis, housing crisis, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, however long it was going on. It was going on for a while. But this follow-up post is one that got me. Wall Street Silver says, I heard tent sales are skyrocketing in California. Well, there's a lot of people living in tents and also mobile homes here. All 100% discount in retail stores. You just walk out with any tent below $950. The stores won't stop you. He said, it's kind of sad that I am not joking. So I guess if you need a tent or place to stay, you can walk into a store and grab a tent and they won't stop you. So that's an interesting chart, don't you think? Interesting as in absolutely panic-inducing if you're, worried about where the economy is going. You've been noticing something lately? By lately, I mean the last couple decades, but how the calamities seem to come like right at the end of a presidential, right in the middle of a presidential race or at the end of a presidential tenure, making things, extra volatile. Or you could just have straight up, remember when George Bush stole the election from Al Gore? And the Democrats were awful mad about that, weren't they? They seemed to think something was hinky there. Something was rotten in Denmark in the year 2000. But anyways, you had the economic collapse right at, the last year of Bush's second term. You had COVID, the last year of Trump's term. I wouldn't be surprised to see an economic collapse in 2024, end of this year, start of next year, right as we're gearing up for voting for who? I don't know, right? But, keep your eyes open for that one. because that makes everything extra volatile, weird, and able to people are in a state of panic, disarray, distress, confusion. It's easy to send out the messages then when everybody's like, what do I do? Oh my God, this is horrible. Help me. What do I do? It's easy then to send out the messages of like, well, I can help you. Well, if you want stability of some kind, well, you got to go for this guy, right? This is your guy, if you want, right? And they should have thought of that in 2016, because not that electing Trump didn't make people feel unstable enough, but you had in 2016 you had people actually talking about the economy and talking about what's really going on in the world, and like there was too much information out there for people to go like, hey, I see what's going on, hey. And powers that be probably won't make that mistake again. It's good to roll out the calamity, the confusion, collapse, confusion thing, in the election year, so you can keep people like kind of on their toes. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think I want a revolution, but I'm not sure. I think I actually want to just keep my home. Who do I vote for? Oh, that guy, the guy I see on TV all the time. Very effective. Okay, let's look at some climate change stuff. A few things to cover. Extreme temperatures in South Africa, never seen before this time of year. Plus 40 C, even in the highlands. Good Lord. And it is, going into it's spring there, going into their spring. It's very warm. And it will get worse. Also exceptional September heat in Europe. September heat records are tumbling in Northwest Europe. September. Let's see. UK will likely hit 30 C for a total of 30 C for 7 consecutive days in September. Think on that one. Unprecedented for September. Northern Ireland also provisionally sets a new monthly heat record of 28 C. In other places, these might seem very, seasonable, very mild, oh, it's not that hot. But for them, it's really hot. That's incredibly warm for this time of year. And heat waves can take many, many shapes and sizes and forms, right? So if the Arctic is above freezing, in the wrong time of the year, like in winter, and that has happened, that is a heat wave. That is a massive heat wave. It doesn't feel hot because it's just 0 C, or just above 0 C, but that's a heat wave. That's something that's not supposed to be happening, and that is detrimental to the biosphere, detrimental to the ecology of the area, right? That detrimental to all the species there that are, assuming it's going to be a particular temperature. Yeah. And there's something that all this heat is causing in the U.S. Climate-fueled weather disasters hits more U.S. farms. And the cost, detrimental to sea ice, yes, Poppy. The cost of ensuring agriculture have skyrocketed. Critics of the federal program say it encourages more carbon-intensive farming and are calling for Congress to lower subsidies for big wealthy producers. The country's farmers took in a record $19 billion in insurance payments in 2022, many because of weather-related disasters. According to a new analysis that suggests climate change could stoke the cost of insuring the nation's farmers and ranchers to unsustainable levels. If you want to, if you want to get an idea of what is really happening, take a look at the insurance industry and what they are paying out or what they are not covering anymore to understand what's really going on, right? Because these people would not destroy their businesses or business model if climate change wasn't happening, right? They certainly wouldn't want to be paying out more money. If climate change wasn't happening, why would they be paying out more money? Anyways, just have to say the Environmental Working Group, which has for decades critically scrutinized the federal crop insurance program, published new research Thursday finding that the cost of the program has soared from just under $3 billion in 2002 to just over $19 billion last year. We found between 2002 and 2022, the crop insurance program sent over $161 billion to farmers, and annual payouts in 2022 were 546% more than they were in 2001. The crop insurance program has become increasingly popular with farmers over the past 20 years as a way to protect themselves from drops in prices and weather-related disasters. Taxpayers subsidize about 60% of the premiums. Farmers cover about 40% and pay deductibles on smaller losses. We know that in part of the increase in payouts comes from an increase in participation in the program, as well as crop prices, but also know that payments for weather-related losses are also going up. Roughly 80% of the subsidies go to the largest 20% of farms. That's in part because they produce most of the crops, but also because smaller farmers have a more difficult time qualifying for the programs. Oh, gee. You say smaller farmers are getting squeezed out again? Oh. That is surprising, isn't it? Anyways, this critics say encourages the growth of large farms that use production methods that are more fuel and carbon intensive. In the past 2 decades, EWG found that roughly 3/4 of all indemnity payments, about $121 billion, went to corn, soybeans, wheat, and cotton, and nearly $56 billion to corn growers alone. Critics of the program worry that it will incentivize more carbon-intensive farming. Already, U.S. farms are responsible for 11% of the country's greenhouse gas emissions. A recent analysis suggests that percentage could rise to about 30% of the total by 2050. More than any other sectors of the economy, if farms and ranches don't shrink their carbon impact. So there you go. I bet the smaller farmers probably also use better agricultural practices, I'm sure. Yes, Timothy Martin, they are still making ethanol. Which is wild to me. That is one of the most damaging, ridiculously destructive things you could possibly do to the planet. And they're still doing it. In fact, I've noticed that the ethanol, what is it called? E85 or something. You know, that gas that's like highly mixed with ethanol is very cheap, right? So if you have one of those cars that burns the E85, your gas is like $2 cheaper a gallon. It's pretty crazy. So in the pocketbook area, yeah, the corn gas will give you some savings, but I mean, in the long run, obviously it's not sustainable because you need a lot of regular gas to make the corn. And I wonder how they price that out, but like, right, the growing of the corn to make the ethanol is very carbon intensive. So I don't really know, unless that's heavily subsidized, and I bet that it is. I'm just going to assume that that market is heavily subsidized, because if you factor in the cost of growing the corn to make the gas, I don't know how on paper that could work out to be a savings, but you tell me if you have any better ideas about it. All right. Real quickly, if you enjoy this channel, if you appreciate this channel, being here every day, you can support me here at paypal.me/Kevin Sandblum, Venmo at Kevin Sandblum, Cash App at Red Llama Music, buymeacoffee.com/Black Bear News, and you can also super chat me or super ray me, and I will check in on all platforms at the end of the show. And there's a guy on Callin. His handle is Dirty Harry, and he comes into the chats almost every day and just says one word: punks. Thanks, Dirty Harry. More fuel is used to grow the corn and make the alcohol than you get back using it. Yeah, I would imagine that it just wouldn't be very, I don't understand how you get cheaper gas from that. But and then you have to mix the ethanol with the gas anyways, right? So I'm not sure where they shave off that dollar off the cost of the gasoline. And my guess is that there is some kind of accounting trick, some kind of subsidy, right? Something in the Inflation Reduction Act that says, like, we got to support this ethanol growing. So we're going to subsidize the cost of this fuel by the tune of, $1 billion or whatever it is. So all right. Well, man, there's so much more I wanted to cover today. Oh, I wanted to read this the other day. This is from Caitlin Johnson. This is pretty good. And it's about John Pilger predicting a coming war with Russia and China. I guess that's the other thing that people have been. Again, you could spend your days in your bed with with blankets over your head going like, I don't hope we don't get in a war with Russia. It may or may not happen, but a lot of people are sending up the flares of like, hey, it looks like they're trying to gear up for like an actual, like, I know we're in a proxy war with Russia, but they're talking about an actual like hot war, like U.S. and Russia going like this. A lot of people are talking about that. So let's read this from Caitlin Johnson. Revisiting John Pilger's 2016 warnings about U.S. warmongering against Russia and China. In March of 2016, the renowned Australian journalist and filmmaker John Pilger published an article titled "A World War Has Begun, Break the Silence," which urgently warned of the U.S. empire's aggressive escalations against Russia and China. Rereading parts of it in 2023 is like watching someone placing flags next to a recently planted seed that would eventually grow into the towering problems our world now faces. It's like listening to a time traveler warning people from the past about a grave mistake they were about to make. Pilger points to U.S. provocations in Ukraine, NATO militarism, and the encirclement of China, and warns of the surging risk of nuclear war, noting that nuclear warhead spending rose higher under Obama than under any president. That is fact. Right? There was the whole, renewing of the nuclear arsenal program that Obama started. And everybody's like, yeah, the defense contractors like, yeah, buddy, bring it on. In the last 18 months, the greatest buildup of military forces since World War II, led by the United States, is taking place along Russia's western frontier, Pilger wrote. Did you all know this? Before the Russians invaded Ukraine, recklessly invading Ukraine, just because they felt like it. No, what happened before that? In the last 18 months, the greatest buildup of military forces since World War II, led by the United States, is taking place along Russia's western frontier. Pilger wrote, not since Hitler invaded the Soviet Union have foreign troops presented such a demonstrable threat to Russia. Ukraine, once part of the Soviet Union, has become a CIA theme park, wrote Pilger. Having orchestrated a coup in Kiev, Washington effectively controls a regime that is next door and hostile to Russia. A regime rotten with Nazis, literally. Prominent parliamentary figures in Ukraine are the political descendants of the notorious OUN and UPA fascists. They openly praise Hitler and call for the persecution and expulsion of the Russian-speaking minority. In Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, next door to Russia, the U.S. military is deploying combat troops, tanks, heavy weapons, Pilger said. This extreme provocation of the world's second nuclear power is met with silence in the West. What makes the prospect of nuclear war even more dangerous is a parallel campaign against China, Pilger continued. The United States is encircling China with a network of bases with ballistic missiles, battle groups, nuclear-armed bombers. This lethal arc extends from Australia to the islands of the Pacific, the Marianas and the Marshalls, and Guam to the Philippines, Thailand, Okinawa, Korea, and across Eurasia to Afghanistan and India. America has hung a noose around the neck of China. This is not news. Silence by media. War by media. Pilger highlighted the way his home country, Australia, was being roped into Washington's war preparations against China, a trend which has since grown much worse as the drums of war grow louder. In 2015, in high secrecy, the U.S. and Australia staged the biggest single air-sea military exercise in recent history, known as Talisman Sabre. He wrote, its aim was to rehearse an air-sea battle plan, blocking sea lanes such as the Straits of Malacca and the Lombok Straits that cut off China's access to oil, gas, and other vital raw materials from the Middle East and Africa. Pilger wrote all this while preparing to release his excellent film, The Coming War on China, which would come out later that year. In it, he shows how the U.S. has been surrounding China with war machinery in a way that would be considered an act of war if it was happening near American shorelines, and drives home the seriousness of the prospect of nuclear conflict. Everything Pilger warned about turned out to be everything he said it was. A war in Ukraine has erupted from the spark of the U.S.-backed coup in 2014 and Russia's fear of an increasingly expansionist and militaristic NATO, while the U.S. military encirclement of China has been rapidly increasing as hostilities between the two superpowers accelerate toward a breaking point, facilitated in no small part by the continent-sized military base known as Australia. What were only background stories in 2016 now dominate the headlines of today. I bring this up because I think it's useful to show that we've been on this track toward global conflict between major powers for years, and it's been unfolding in ways that some saw coming from miles away. Much of Pilger's work could be called prophetic, but Pilger is no prophet. He's just a journalist with an ear to the ground who's been critically scrutinizing the behavior of the empire for decades. He was able to accurately mark the trajectory our world has been on earlier than most, and it has continued along that same trajectory with frightening speed ever since. If you can see the trajectory that an object is on, you can determine where you need to stand in order to obstruct its path. The fact that we've been on a linear trajectory towards global conflict between nuclear armed states all these years shows that opposing that trajectory is of existential importance for every living organism on this planet. And yet the media still want us focused on celebrity gossip and party politics and Donald Trump. World War is still closing in on us. We still need to break the silence and oppose it. Our rulers have been steering us in this direction for a long time now, and they're not going to turn away until we make them. All right, well, that was a good piece from Caitlin Johnson. And I, you know, actually for the entire year, I've been seeing a lot of these videos that are supposedly coming out of China of military buildup around Taiwan from the Chinese, you know, in expectation of something. I don't know, guys. I'm not really. I can't verify all these videos. I see so many of these, and I'm just playing a few for you. This is China is mobilizing its military forces in the area of 2 cities located close to Taiwan. And another one. Chinese armed forces are moving a large number of tanks to an area near Taiwan. It was reported that the largest concentration of PLA armored vehicles and personnel was seen in Fuzhou, the closest port to Taiwan. I'm just assuming this is actually footage from but you know, I see these pretty much every day. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't see that. I see these pretty much every day. And I've been seeing quite a few of them, you know, off and on for the last year. No, so Taiwan is, I don't know, there's a lot of suggestions that Taiwan will be used much like Ukraine as a proxy for a war against China. So they're going to Ukraine Taiwan, I guess. I don't know. I'm listening to other people that know more than me talk about it, and it seems like it's going in that direction. And if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you know, you see that it is kind of going towards that direction. Who was it that predicted that there was going to be an all-out hot war between the U.S. and Russia recently? Anybody? I know somebody somewhat prominent said, you know, hey, they're going to do this. They're going to I don't know if it was Jeffrey Sachs. Some man, name is escaping me, but someone recently was like, they're going to, this is where they're going, this is what's happening. And there's one more piece here on Tucker Carlson. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. That's right. So, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like a scary proposition to me. Also sounds like something that could, you know, again, you need the calamity in the election year, so it could be, you know, another pandemic, or it could be, you know, how about How about an all-out war with Russia? We're an emergency, guys. It's a wartime footing. Oh my God, we have to suspend civil rights and constitutional rights, and everybody who can draft off the streets will get in the military, and everybody's lives will be completely upended. Maybe that's what they have in store. I don't know. What's up, William? How you doing?
Yeah, I think we can go back when Biden was a senator. I think back in '97, if my recollection serves me right, he was saying we keep expanding NATO east of Germany. We're going to get into a hot war with Russia. Then William Burns, when he was ambassador to Russia, made that statement. I'd have to look back when. Now he's head of the CIA. So that's been being predicted by people for a long time. It's as if they're slow walking us into it intentionally, you know?
It seems that way. And that,
Right.
you know, I don't see anything that's going to stop it, right? There's no, I mean, people don't like it, but there's no widespread movement, stop the war. There's no, people aren't in front of the White House, or maybe they can't get in front of the White House anymore. Maybe if you come to Washington to protest the war, they know you're coming and they'll keep you out. I don't know. But I don't see any real, like, aside from a few Republicans in the House that are like, hey, maybe we shouldn't spend all this money to Ukraine. And there's a few presidential candidates out there that are like, we shouldn't do this anymore. We should stop this. But I don't see a lot of momentum for stopping the war. So I imagine they're going to get what they want.
Yeah, well, at least they're going to lead us to believe that, to pump up that military-industrial congressional complex and put more money into it, while they drain the economy here. Whatever.
Well, the other thing too that's happening that's interesting, that I think is just as something that people should keep their eyes on, is there are a lot of other small conflicts, skirmishes, if you will, Niger and Burkina Faso, and now Iran. Like, I just saw something about Iran is massing troops on, like, the Armenian border. So there's these other, kind of smaller regional conflicts that seem to be drawing in Russia, and Russia's getting involved in helping one side or the other, and the U.S. is obviously going to help one side or the other. So it makes the likelihood that they just goes gloves off at some point, makes it more likely.
Didn't Albert Pike predict 3 world wars? The 33-degree Freemason and the Confederate general? I'm pretty sure he did. I think they got this planned out.
He did predict three world wars?
Yes, he did. Trump was very upset when his statue was torn down, too.
What did he say about the Third World War? Like, it would be the last one? I mean, nothing would be left?
No, I'm trying to recall. I'd have to, I'm just going off memory. I know he predicted 3 when he was a Confederate general. But because he's a 33-degree Freemason, but I think they orchestrate all this, Kev. The banksters and the Freemasons, they get together in the Catholic Church. This is how they, take land and debt nations, and you know how they play it. I hate to minimize it, but
it's also the idea that we can have all these conflicts going on and not and it be something that's, like, managed, right? That's been the game plan since World War II has been to have these little, like, regional, Korea, Vietnam, all the way through it, right? These little regional conflicts that they can control and win, that they think they can control and win, right? And so they don't ever factor in the idea that it could spiral out of control at any point, right?
It's possible. Hey, listen, I know we're at the end of the show. Have you heard about what happened with Biden? Missouri versus Biden? The appellate courts came down. And,
no, I didn't hear.
Okay. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that certain officials from the Biden administration overstepped their bounds by pressuring social media platforms to limit specific content. The court affirmed that the White House, Surgeon General, CDC, and FBI likely infringed upon the First Amendment by urging or significantly influencing the decision of social media companies to censor content. However, the court delineated its position. This is a new ruling, pointing out discrepancies with a previous lower court decision. It disagreed with the district court's previous judgment that the NIAID, that's Fauci as well, National
Yes.
Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, CISA. What's CISA, Kev? I don't know what that stands for. I have to look it up.
CISA? I don't know.
Yes, I remember. What didn't Matt Taibbi mention? Something about that, and Matt Taibbi rings. I don't know why. And so CISA and the State Department officials have potentially violated the First Amendment. The broader injunction originally issued by the District of Louisiana, Judge Terry A. Dougherty in Mississippi versus Biden case sought to bar the Biden administration from pushing social media platforms to censor. This injunction was rooted in the belief that these actions suppress protected speech. So what they did was there were 10 items the previous court cited, and they upheld one of them. So it's a victory, but it's not as broad as you see. In other words, they're saying, well, no, actually, the NIAID, the CISA, and the State Department, they excluded those, which is kind of weird. They included the FBI. I forget what other inclusions there were. Let me see. Is that in the CDC and the Surgeon General? So isn't that kind of bizarre? Don't they work hand in hand? Am I missing something?
Right, right.
I mean, how separate is the NIAID from the CDC or the State Department from the FBI
or the NSA or the FBI? Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. This court, the courts, they're just a front for the establishment. You know what I mean? They come down with these rulings like this. Anyway, I know. I just wanted to touch on too. Dr. Judy Wood, 9/11, direct energy weapons, and maybe I don't know if you want to talk about that going into Monday at all, but I thought I'd drop it in the chat. And there's a Robert Brame, I think his name is, a forensic arborist who's seeing a lot of evidence of such a thing in Paradise and Lahaina.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I've seen some videos around it, and I'm not. It's some of it might be compelling, and even if we're going to talk about 9/11, so I think some of the things Judy Wood pointed out are compelling, but it's not. I mean, to me, it's not even about how they did it. In some ways, it's just the fact that you have to know, you have to just see that there was something else going on there, right? Like how it happened, I don't know, but. I've watched all those videos. But it's just to see that it's not how they described it happening. Obviously, that it's an obvious, right, controlled destruction, right? So
sure looks like it.
Yeah, and then whether same with Hawaii too. Whether it was power lines or tall grasses or directed energy weapons or I don't know what. It's just the fact. It's just seeing that, being able to see that there was something else going on there, controlling how the situation played out, not necessarily like what started it, or how they made it happen. I feel like it's important, but also not as significant as to how it was managed, right? So I don't know.
Well, I hear you, but the bottom line is it sure looks like a reappropriation of land and a land grab, because 3 weeks before the fire, Governor Green signed the emergency housing proclamation that eliminated the sunset clause and that any housing normal commission that would normally approve construction.
Right.
And it doesn't provide housing for low income. Yeah. So. And then we know everything else we talked about, and all those coincidences that you played. Oh, by the way, can you post that room so I can forward it to friends? Because you got the 2 videos in it. The room you did yesterday.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll post it. Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that. It takes a little while to. Sometimes I get distracted after the show, so I did have to go to work like right after the show yesterday, so I got distracted. Right. I'll post that, William, and I'm going to sign off, y'all. Thanks for,
Okay.
I gotta get on the good foot. But thanks for calling in, William. I appreciate you. And
Yeah, I appreciate you too, Kev. Thanks. Don't forget about Harry. He does that all the time. I don't know why people have nothing better to do.
it's kind of funny. At first, I was like, I don't understand, but whatever. That's
Right.
I look over and I just see punks.
Yeah.
It's kind of
He's a
hilarious.
tough guy. Tough guy hides behind a what do you want to call it? An avatar. Real tough
Right.
guy. You know what I mean?
It's something to do, I guess. He enjoys it.
I guess.
All right.
Right.
Oh, before I
Thank
go,
you, brother.
okay, thanks, man. Before I go, I'm checking in on Rockfin, checking in for tips, checking in on all the other platforms real quick before I get out of here. And thank you all, those that support the show. I do thank you all. You know who you are. All right. All right, guys. I will see you tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, peace.
Thank you.